Hello friends, I'm Ankita Meshram, MTech in Structural Engineering, Assistant Professor in Civil Engineering Department at Tulsi Ramji Gaikwad Patil College of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur, accredited with NAC A+ grade. So, I welcome you all in today's video lecture based on subject Surveying 1. Right? The topic which I am going to deal with in today's session is compass surveying, right? Which includes determination of angular measurements, right? So I begin with the presentation. So what is meant by compass surveying, right? In my previous video lecture, I already briefed about the chain surveying, right? That can be used when the area to be surveyed is comparatively small and is fairly flat, right? But when the area is large, undulated and crowded with many details, triangulation, that is the principle of chain surveying, is not possible, right? In such case, we adopted the traversing method, right? That means we have to deal with the compass survey, right? So, first of all, I discuss about what is mean by traversing, right? This is the basic principle of compass survey, right? So, in traversing, the framework consists of a number of connected lines, okay? The length are measured with the help of chain or tape, and the directions, that is the bearing, or we can say that angles, measured with the help of angle measuring instrument, right? So in one of the method, the angle measuring instrument is the compass, right? Hence in compass surveying, directions of survey line are determined with the help of compass, and the length of lines are measured with the help of tape or chain, right? This process is known as compass traversing. Okay, as you all can see that there is a classification of traversing based on two types. Number one is closed traverse and number two is open traverse, right? So in closed traverse, when the end station points coincide with the starting station point, right? That is, when the series of connected lines form a closed circuit is called as closed traverse, right? And when the first station point and the last station point do not meet at the same point, then the particular traverse is called as open traverse, right? Next, so the principle of compass surveying, that is the traversing, right, which involves a series of connected lines. The magnetic bearing of lines are measured with the help of prismatic compass, and the distance of the line are measured with the help of chain or tape, right? Such survey does not require the formulation of network of triangles, okay? So the compass surveying is recommended when the area is large, undulated and the crowded with many number of detailing, right? So compass surveying is not recommended for the areas where local attraction is suspected, right? Due to the presence of magnetic substance like steel structure, iron ore deposit, electric pole, cables, right, and so on. So the only disadvantage of compass survey that we do not perform the compass survey in case of local attractions suspend, right? When there is a local attraction, we are not able to perform the compass survey. This is the only disadvantage of compass surveying, right? Next, this is the one of the example of traversing, right? There is a station A, B, C, D, E, right? This is the example of closed traverse, right? Next, there are different types of compass which you have to use for performing the compass survey, right? So what is meant by compass? A compass is a small instrument essentially consisting of a magnetic needle, a graduated circle and a line of sight. The compass cannot measure angle between the two lines directly, but it can measure angle of a line with reference to magnetic meridian, right? At the instrument station point is called as magnetic bearing of a line. The angle between two lines is then calculated by getting the bearing of these two lines. So basically, with the help of compass surveying, we are able to determine the bearing or angle of a line with respect to magnetic meridian, right? In most of the cases, the magnetic meridian is our magnetic north only, right? So while doing with the compass survey, we always measured angle with respect to north, right? So there are two forms of compass are available. Number one is prismatic compass and another one is surveyor compass, right? So the prismatic compass is a magnetic compass which consists of the following part. Number one is there is a cylindrical metal box having diameter 8 to 12 centimeter, right? It protects the compass and forms the entire casing or body of the compass, right? It protects the compass from the dust, rain and other external parameter, right? So there is a pivot is there provided at the center of the compass and supports freely suspended magnetic needle over it, right? The magnetic needle is pivoted at the center, okay? Then there is a lifting pin and lifting lever, right? The lifting pin is provided just below the sighting vein. When the sight vein is folded, it presses the lifting pin, right? The lifting pin with the help of lifting lever then lifts the magnetic needle out of the pivot point to prevent damage of the pivot head, right? So these are the basically components of the prismatic compass, right? Which I am discussing here, right? Next is spring brake or brake pin, right? To damp the oscillation of the needle before taking a reading and to bring it to rest quickly. The light spring brake attached to the inside of the box is brought in contact with the edge of the ring by gently pressing inward the brake pin, right? So this is the instrument, this is the equipment, right? That is the brake pin is used to bring down the needle in the rest condition, right? So the next component of prismatic compass is magnetic needle, the very important component, right? Because the needle shows the bearing, right? So magnetic needle is the heart of the instrument. This needle measures angle of a line, that is the bearing, from magnetic meridian. Magnetic meridian is always pointed towards the north and south pole at the two ends of the needle when freely suspended on any support, right? The needle is freely suspended in nature and the bearing is always taken from the magnetic north, that is mostly the magnetic, called as the magnetic meridian, right? Next is the graduated circle or ring. This is an aluminium graduated ring marked with 0 degree to 360 degree to measure all possible bearings of lines and attached with the magnetic needle, right? In the prismatic compass, the magnetic needle is attached with the graduated ring, right? And the graduations were there starting from the 0 degree to the 360 degree, right? The ring is graduated to half a degree, okay? Now, next, there is a prism, right? Prism is used to reading the graduations on a ring and to take exact reading by the compass, okay? So it is placed exactly opposite to the object vein. The prism hole is protected with the help of prism cap, right? To protect the prism from dust and moisture, right? So basically, this is the attachment from which we are able to read the readings. We are able to read the angles, right? Now, the next component is object vane. Object vane is diagrammatically opposite to the prism and eye vane. The object vane is carrying a horse hair, or you can say that black thin wire to sight the object in line with eyesight, okay? Next component is eye vane. Eye vane is a fine slit provided with eye hole at the bottom to bisect the object from the slit and to take reading simultaneously from the eye hole, right? This eye vane is provided with prism and can be lifted up and down by the stud to bisect the object of higher level, right? So basically these are the overall components of the prismatic compass which I am discussing here. Another one is glass cover. It covers the instrument box from the top such that needle and graduated ring is seen from the top, right? So there is a glass cover provided at the top, okay? Then after that there is a sunglasses. These are used when luminous objects are to be bisected. These are placed in front of the eye slit and in bunch of 3 or 4 shades of different colors to give sharp picture of the object, right? Another component is the reflecting mirror. It is used to get image of an object located above or below the instrument level while bisection. It is placed on the object vane, right? So this is the overall basic components of the prismatic compass, right, which I discussed in brief, okay? Now we are going to see the working principle of the prismatic compass, right? So when the needle of the compass is suspended freely, it always points towards the north, right? Therefore, all the angles measured with the prismatic compass are with respect to magnetic north, which is called as magnetic meridian, right? Don't forget, whenever we deal with the prismatic compass, the angular measurement is always taken with respect to magnetic north, or we can say that magnetic meridian, right? So The horizontal angle made by a survey line with reference to magnetic meridian in a clockwise direction is called the bearing of a line, right? So the technical word for angle in surveying is called as bearing of a line, right? Bearing means nothing but the angles, okay? So while using the compass, it is usually mounted on a light tripod which is having vertical spindle in the ball and socket arrangement to which the compass is screwed. Like so, as you all can see that there is a picture displaying over here. There is a tripod consisting 3 legs, right? And over there is an arrangement for fixing the compass into it, right? So with the help of compass, we always measure the bearing of a line, that is the angle with respect to magnetic north, right? So these are the some temporary adjustment which you have to carry before performing the survey, right? So the following procedure should be adopted after the prismatic compass on the tripod for measuring the bearing of a line, right? Number one is centering. So centering is the operation in which compass is kept exactly over the station from where the bearing is to be determined, right? The centering is checked by dropping a small pebble from the underside of the compass. If the pebble falls on the top of the peg, then the centering is correct. If not, then the centering is corrected by adjustment the legs of the tripod, right? Or you can use the plumb bob also for the centering purpose, right? After that, the next operation is leveling. Leveling of the compass is done with the aim to freely swing the graduated circular ring of the prismatic compass, right? The ball and socket arrangement on the tripod will help to achieve a proper leveling of the compass, right? This can be checked by rolling round pencil or rolling round pencil on glass cover, okay? Number 3 operation is focusing, right? The prism is moved up or down in its slide till the graduations on the aluminium ring are seen clear, right? So you have to done focusing for that, right? So that sharp and perfect image is obtained. Perfect, sharp, see a clear graduation should be read with the help of prism, right? The position of the prism will depend upon the vision of the observer, right? So as you all can see that this is the component showing of the prismatic compass, right? So these are the various components of prismatic compass. Total 18 components were there. This is the diagrammatic representation of prismatic compass, right? So this is the procedure for observing a bearing of a line, right? So first of all, you have to consider a line AB of which the magnetic bearing is to be observed. So for that, let the ranging rod be fixed at B in line AB and the compass is centered on A. Okay. So the compass is set onto the station point A, right? And you have to calculate the bearing of line AB with the help of compass surveying, right? So for that purpose, you have to turn the compass in the direction of line AB, right? When B is bisected by the vertical hair, that is, when ranging rod and B comes in a line with the slit of I vein and the vertical hair, that is, when ranging rod at B comes in a line with the slit of I vein and the vertical hair of the object vein, the reading under the vertical hair through prism is taken, right, which gives the bearing of line AB. Okay, the enlarged portion gives actual pattern of graduations marked on a ring, right? So first of all, you have to set up the instrument at station point A, right? From that station, you have to bisect the station point B, right? So you have to turn the compass towards the station B and bisect the object B, right, with the help of sighting vein, right? So the angle which is displayed is directly seen with the help of prism, right? So basically this is the mechanism of prismatic compass, right? 0 degree mark at south end, okay, or the object is in the opposite direction of south, right? So this is the mechanism of compass. You will able to read or you will get the value of bearing by looking directly through the prism, right? So this is the graduations which are made on the graduated ring of prismatic compass, right? As you all can see that 0 degree at south end, then there is a 90 degree, 180 degree at north and 270 degree, and at last it completes the 360 degree of the circle, right? So you have to bisect the object B for getting the bearing of a line AB, right? The reading which is obtained, the bearing which is obtained is directly seen through the prism, right? Next, the another type of compass is surveyor compass, right? It is similar to the prismatic compass except that it has only plain eye slit instead of eye slit with prism, right? So there is no prism in surveyor compass, okay? And in surveyor compass, the graduated ring is attached to the box, right? And the graduations are made from 0 to 90° in 4 quadrants, right? So the 0 is marked at north end as well as at south end, and the 90° is marked at east end as well as west end, okay? Next, so the surveyor compass consisting of primary adjustment, right? Number one is you have to deal with centering, and number two is leveling. There is no focusing operation carried out because there is no prism provided in the surveyor compass, right? So first two operations are similar to that of prismatic compass, but the method of taking observation differs from that, right? Observing the bearing of a line with the help of surveyor compass, right? The reading is taken from the top of the glass and under the tip of north end of the magnetic needle directly. No prism is provided here. That means you have to look over the top of the glass for taking the readings, right? Next I am going to deal with the topic bearing, right? So what is meant by bearing? Bearing is nothing but a horizontal angle which it makes with reference to magnetic meridian. Depending upon the meridian, there are 4 types of bearings, right? So bearing is nothing but a horizontal angle made with the reference point, made with the reference line called as meridian, right? So there are 4 types of bearings. Number one is true bearing. The true bearing of a line is a horizontal angle between the true meridian and the survey line, right? The true bearing is measured from the true north in the clockwise direction, right? So when the bearing is measured with respect to true north, it is called as true bearing, okay? Number two is magnetic bearing. The magnetic bearing of a line is the horizontal angle which the line makes with the magnetic north, right? So the angle measured with respect to magnetic north is called as magnetic bearing, right? Number three is grid bearing. The grid bearing of a line is the horizontal angle which the line makes with the grid meridian, right? And the last one is arbitrary bearing. The arbitrary bearing of a line is the horizontal angle which the line makes with the arbitrary meridian, right? So basically this is the assumption, right? You have to assume the meridian, okay? So this is the example of true bearing and magnetic bearing, right? So the angle measured with respect to true north, that is the actual north of the geographical earth, right? So the angle measured with respect to true north is called as true bearing, as you all can see that, and the angle measured with respect to magnetic north is called as magnetic bearing. Magnetic north is nothing but the deviation of the actual north, right, because of the local attraction presence in the surveyor field, right? Because of the local attraction present in the field, because of that the actual north position gets deflected towards the magnetic north, right? And the difference between the true north and magnetic north is called as magnetic declination, right? Next, so here is the brief example of true north and magnetic north, right? Because of the local attraction, because of the magnetic force present over the field, the true north is deflected from its original position to the magnetic north, and the angle of alpha is called as true bearing, right? Alpha is called as true bearing and beta is called as magnetic bearing, as the angle taken from the magnetic north is called as magnetic bearing denoted by beta, and the angle taken with respect to true north is called as true bearing, that is the angle alpha, right? So this is the diagrammatic representation of the true bearing and magnetic bearing, right? Now I am discuss about the designation of bearing, right? So I am going to discuss about the very important topic called as designation of bearing. The bearings are designated into following two systems. Number one is whole circle bearing and number two is quadrantal bearing, right? So one by one we deal with the both the types of bearing. So first of all, I am dealing with the whole circle bearing, right? The bearing of a line measured with respect to magnetic north in clockwise direction is called as magnetic bearing, or its value varies between 0 to 30 degree, right? So whenever we measured angle with respect to magnetic north in always in a clockwise direction, then the particular bearing is called as whole circle bearing, and its value ranges between 0 degree to 360 degree, right? Then the next one is the quadrants start from north and progress in a clockwise direction, as the first quadrant is 0 to 90 degree in a clockwise direction, second is 90 to 180 degree, third is 180 to 270 degree, and up to 360 degree in the fourth quadrant, right? So this is the basically graduation of the whole circle bearing system, starting from the 0 degree and ended up to 360 degree, right? So this is the diagrammatic representation of whole circle bearing, right? Taken in all four quadrants. For example, there is a station point O and you have to measure a bearing of line OA, which is lies on the first quadrant. So you have to measure the angle, you have to measure the bearing with respect to magnetic north in always in a clockwise direction, right? So this is the diagrammatic representation of bearing OA, OB, OC and OD, which is lies in the four different coordinates, right? And you have to measure the angle with respect to north only, right? Next. So this is the graduation of whole circle bearing displaying over here, that is starting from the 0 degree, then 90 degree, 180 degree, 270 degree, and at last it ended up to 360 degree, right? Next system is quadrantal bearing system, or you can say that reduced bearing, right? So in this system, the bearing of a survey line are measured with respect to north line or with respect to south line, right? Whichever is the nearest, right, to the given survey line, and either in clockwise direction or in anti-clockwise direction also, right? So in quadrantal bearing system, you are able to measure the bearing of a line with respect to north or as well as with respect to south, whichever is the nearest, in clockwise direction as well as in anti-clockwise direction, right? So it is also called as reduced bearing, right? So when the whole circle bearing of a line is converted into quadrantal bearing, it is termed as reduced bearing. Whenever we convert the whole circle bearing to the quadrantal bearing, it always called as reduced bearing, right? So thus the reduced bearing is similar to the quadrantal bearing. Its value lies between 0 degree to 90 degree, but the quadrant should be mentioned for proper designation, right? Each and every coordinate is divided into 0 to 90 degree parameter, right? So as you all can see that there is a NE quadrant, then SE quadrant, then SW quadrant, at last there is a NW quadrant, that is northwest quadrant, right? So you have to measure the bearing of a line with respect to north or with respect to south, right, in a clockwise or anti-clockwise direction, whichever is the nearest value, right? So 0 degree is always mentioned at south end and north end, and 90 degree is mentioned at east end and west end, right? So this is the graduated circle of reduced bearing, right? This is the graduation of reduced bearing. See, 0 to 90 degree, then again 0 mentioned at south end, 90 mentioned at east, 0 to 90 degree, then again in the third quadrant 0 is at south end and 90 degree is at west end, right? So in this way you have to deal with the reduced bearing system. Okay, now this is the following table. You should always remember for the conversion of whole circle bearing to the reduced bearing, right? So there is a relation between whole circle bearing and quadrantal bearing, right? Whenever the whole circle bearing is between 0 to 90 degree, the reduced bearing is also equal to the whole circle bearing, right? Whenever, because the bearing is lies on the first quadrant, okay? When the bearing of a line is lies on the second quadrant of whole circle bearing system, that is 90 degree to 180 degree, then for getting the reduced bearing you have to deduct whole circle bearing from 180 degree, right? When the bearing of a line is lies on the third quadrant, that is 180 degree to 270 degree, then for getting the reduced bearing you have to apply this formula, that is whole circle bearing minus 180 degree, right? You will get the reduced bearing value, right? Okay. And the last one, when the bearing lies at the fourth quadrant, that is from 270 degree to 360 degree, then for getting the RB, you have to deduct the whole circle bearing value from 360 degree, right? And the quadrant is as follows, that is first quadrant is NE, second quadrant is SE, third quadrant is SW, and the last one is NW, right? N for north, E for east, S for south, and W for west, right? So in this way you have to convert the whole circle bearing into reduced bearing. Now the another table you should always remember for conversion from RB to WCB, that means from reduced bearing to the whole circle bearing, right? When the RB is lies on any quadrant, then the whole circle bearing and RB both are equal, right? When the RB is lies on the second quadrant, that is SE, right, then for getting the whole circle bearing you have to deduct reduced bearing value from 180 degree, okay. When the bearing lies in the SW quadrant, then for getting the whole circle bearing you have to add 180 degree to the RB value, right. When the bearing of a line is lie on the NW quadrant, that is the fourth quadrant, for getting the WCB you have to deduct RB value from 360 degree, right. So basically this is the overall conversion of WCB to RB and RB to WCB. You have to always remember this table for the calculation purpose. Okay. Now I am going to discuss about what is meant by forebearing and what is meant by back bearing, right. As you all know that bearing means the angles, right, measured with respect to magnetic meridian or magnetic north, right. Now I am going to discuss about what is meant by forebearing and what is meant by back bearing, right. The bearing of a line measured in the forward direction of a survey line, then it is called as forebearing of that line, and when the bearing of a line is measured in the direction opposite to the direction of the progress of survey line is called as back bearing, right. So whenever you measure the bearing in the forward direction of survey line, then it is called as forebearing, and in opposite direction of the survey line is whenever you measure the angle in the opposite direction of the survey line, then it is called as back bearing, right. So this is the diagrammatic representation of forebearing and back bearing. So there is a station point A, right. The progress of survey line is from station A to station B, right. So the angle measured with respect to north towards the station B is called as forebearing, and the angle measured from B with respect to north towards the station point A is called as back bearing, right, because the progress of survey line is from station A to station B, right. In another diagrammatic representation, the progress of survey line is from station B to station A, right. So in that case, the bearing measured from the station B is called as forebearing, and the bearing measured with respect to north from station A is called as back bearing, right. So this is the basic diagrammatical representation of forebearing and back bearing concept, right. Now by getting the bearings of line you are able to compute the angles between the two stations, right. So here in this case there is a station point A, E and B, and you have to find out the angle A, right. So for that purpose you have to calculate the forebearing of line AB and the back bearing of line AE. Why? Because the progress of survey line in the direction of AB, right, and the progress of survey line from station E to A is the progress of survey line, right. That is you have to go with the station E from station E to station A, right, towards A, right. So in that case the bearing of a line AB is called as forebearing and the bearing of line AE is called as back bearing, right. So for getting the angle A you have to deduct back bearing of EA with respect to forebearing of AB, right. So forebearing of AB minus back bearing of EA, you will able to get the angle of A, right. So this is the basic concept for calculating the computation of angle. From the bearing of line you are able to calculate the interior angles, right. So for computation of angles, while calculating the interior or included angles, it is strongly recommended that a rough sketch of the traverse must be drawn for the purpose of calculating the interior angles or bearing from included angles, right. A sketch always gives a better idea for calculation, right. So you have to draw a rough sketch of all the bearings, right. Now, at any survey station, generally forebearing of one line and the back bearing of another line are measured, right? The difference of these two bearings, that is the forebearing of one line and the back bearing of another line. So, the difference of these two bearing will give you the either an interior angle or an exterior angle depending upon the station position, right? So, this particular type of numerical I already discussed in our theoretical classes, right? Hope you should able to understood the concept of computation of angles, right, from that theoretical class, okay? So, the next topic I am going to deal with in today's session is magnetic declination. This is again very important topic, right? The horizontal angle between the magnetic meridian and the true meridian is known as magnetic declination, as I already brief about this magnetic declination, right? So when the north end of the magnetic needle is pointed towards the west side of the true meridian, the position is termed as declination west, okay? When the north end of the needle is pointed towards the east side of the true meridian, then the position is termed as declination east, right? So this is the diagrammatic representation of magnetic declination, right? So there is a true north and magnetic north, right? The angle which is obtained between these two bearing is called as declination, right? So if the magnetic north is at right of the true north, then the declination is east. If the magnetic north is left towards the true north, then it is called as declination west, right? So according to this, you have to apply the formula for calculating the magnetic declination or true bearing or magnetic bearing, right? So determination of true bearing and magnetic bearing, there is a formula for calculating. So true bearing is equal to magnetic bearing plus minus declination. You have to use plus sign when declination is towards east, and you have to use negative sign when declination is towards west, right? Same for calculating the magnetic bearing is equal to true bearing plus minus declination. Use positive sign when declination is towards west. Use negative sign when declination is towards east, right? So this is the very simple formula for calculating the bearings, okay, when there is a declination cause, okay? So at last I am going to discuss about one of the phenomena is called as local attraction, right? Because of that local attraction only our needle is diverted from true north to magnetic north and there is a declination occur, right? So north end of a freely suspended magnetic needle will always point towards the magnetic north because of the magnetic forces present, right? So if it is not influenced by any other external forces except the earth magnetic field, it is common experience that magnetic needle gets deflected from its normal position, right? If placed near magnetic rocks, iron ore cables carrying currents, iron electric poles, right? So therefore not reliable unless these are checked against the presence of local attraction at each station and their elimination, right? So when there is a local attraction occur, local attraction cause, you have to suspect the local attraction and apply the necessary correction for getting the corrected bearings, right? So this is the external forces present over the field, right, due to which our needle is diverted, okay, and the or we can see that our needle is influenced with the help of by the external forces, right? Under the influence of these external forces our needle is diverted, okay, or you can say that influenced, okay? So detection of local attraction is very important concept, right? Because the presence of local attraction at any station may be detected by observing the forebearing and back bearing of line, right? If the difference of forebearing and back bearing of a line is 180-degree, then both end stations are free from local attraction, we conclude, right? If it is not, if the difference is not 180-degree, then there is a local attraction occur, right? So, an error in observation of either fore and back bearing or both, presence of local attraction at either station or presence of local attraction at both the station, there may be a possibility, okay? So, when the difference of forebearing and back bearing is 180-degree, you conclude there is no local attraction, or when the difference of forebearing and back bearing is not equal to 180-degree, then there is a local attraction and you have to identify the local attraction, and by applying the necessary correction, you are able to get the corrected forebearing and back bearing, right? So, now the next topic is sources of error in compass survey, right? So there are basically three errors, or you can say that The errors may be classified into three categories. Number one is instrumental error, which is caused by the defect in instrument, right? Number two is the error of manipulation and citing, that is you called as a personal error, or you can say that a human error while citing, okay? And the last one is error due to external influence, okay? Local attraction, okay? External influence may be local attraction, maybe sunny day, maybe there is a wind occur, right? Maybe there is a rain, right? So basically these are the overall parameter of external influence, right? So this is the classification of errors which is occur in compass surveying, right? Now at last you have to take some precautions while doing the compass survey with the help of prismatic compass or with the help of surveyor compass, right? The centering should be properly done. Next is to stop the rotation of the graduation ring. The brake pin is there. You should press the brake pin very gently and not suddenly, right? And the reading should be taken along the line of sight and not from any other side. You always take the reading with the help of along the line of sight only, okay? So next is when the compass has to be shifted from one station to another, the sight wind should be folded over the glass cover. This is done to lift the ring out of the pivot to avoid necessary wear of the pivot, okay? Next is you have to take precaution that the compass box should be tapped gently before taking the reading. This is done to find out whether the needle rotates freely, right? Then the station should not be selected near any magnetic substances for preventing the local attraction, okay? The observer should not carry the magnetic substance with them while performing the compass survey because it influenced our magnetic needle, okay? And at last, the glass cover should not be dusted with a handkerchief because the glass may be charged with electricity and the needle may get deflected from its true direction, okay? So the glass cover should be cleaned with a moist finger, okay? So basically these are the precautions you have to carry out while performing the compass survey, right? So at last I conclude my today's video lecture here only. Thank you so much for listening it very patiently, right? I hope you can clear all the basic concept, or you can understood the basic concept related to the compass surveying, right? Thank you so much.